What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to get started on making some parts for the diesel build. You may or may not have seen in the previous video I did mention I got a 1988 F250 7.3 liter diesel truck. It does have two-wheel drive I-beam suspension on the front, just like all the other trucks that we've built on the channel. What my plan is for the truck is I do have bigger wheels and tires to put on it, and the truck being at stock height right now, I do need to lift the front of the truck up to be able to fit the 35-inch tire, which these are them right here. It's a 35-inch Tri-Ace tire and a 17-inch method wheel that is going to be going on the truck. But to be able to fit that, like I was saying, I do need to lift the front of the truck up, and the way that I'm personally going to be going about doing that is I do have a set of coilovers on order that I'm going to be mounting on the truck. But to be able to lift the front of the truck, it's not only just the coilovers itself that you have to do. I'm going to go ahead and drop the beam pivots down 2 inches with AutoFab beam pivots, as well as I'm going to create my own radius arm mounts and radius arms to be able to compensate for the lift on the truck. So today what we're going to be getting started with is actually making those radius arm mounts, because I don't have the coilovers yet. I'm still waiting on getting those from Down South Motorsports. They're on order. But to try and stay ahead of the game a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and get the things that I can get done finished now. That way once the coilovers do show up, I'm not running around trying to get a bunch of things done at one time. My brother has gone ahead and got everything drawn up for the radius arm mounts in the computer for me.
Hey guys, it's Jake here. I just wanted to quickly run down with you this radius arm mount design. And I've designed this in SolidWorks. That's the program that I use for all my stuff. I get that question quite a bit on Instagram, so that's what I'm using to design everything. And Christian gave me a few initial conditions of what he wanted for this mount. So from end to end, he wanted that to be 10 inches, and then also critical, the heim to the bottom of the frame here, that height, he wanted 3.5 inches, and then the spread for the misalignments is 2 3/4. So those were sort of the initial conditions he gave me, and then he also drew a rough sketch of what he wanted. So that's what I based everything off of. We ended up going with 4 bolts here on the side of the frame, and then just a single one on the bottom of the frame. And I almost wanted to bump this up to 5/8. All these right here are 1/2 inch. The reason that I didn't do that is because drilling into a frame is not fun if you've ever done it. So I just left that 1/2 inch just to save Christian the trouble of drilling a 5/8 hole in a frame. And if you look closely, that is offset to the front. And the reasoning for that is when you're putting this thing on the truck, if you look from underneath, if you didn't have it offset, to get a socket in here, the extension would be hitting this plate right here. So you always got to think about those kinds of things when you're designing stuff. So that's why that's offset there. And all these bolt files, if you're wondering, are from McMaster Car. That's where I get them all. And they're not necessary to have in your assembly. It's mostly just for looks. But yeah, I also got 1.25 inch heim down here because that's what we're going to be running on the truck. Just to give you guys a quick idea on how I make some of these parts, each plate is a different part file. So I'll first start by making just a body like this that I can base everything off of. And then that's going to be 2 3/4 spread as well. And the reason I do this is because it makes it really easy. So let me just make this invisible here. So you start off with this body. If you go to convert to sheet metal, you can hit that, and then you can select any face on here. So it makes it really easy. So I can select this face, the top face. So if I just click here, I can do that and then set the thickness 1/4 inch, hit OK. And then now you have that file ready to go. You can save it and then put it in your assembly. So it makes it really easy. And then also just really quickly, if you make a drawing from the part, this is how I end up printing everything out and being able to cut it out. So we'll go with the standard sheet size. And then on the right here, you can select the one that's going to lay it flat. You can do flat pattern, or in this case it's the front. And then I delete the sheet format because when you print it out, you don't need that. So you do that, click here again, set the scale to 1:1, and then center things up a little bit. And bam, you just go File, Save As, save it as a PDF, and you're ready to go. You can print it out, cut it out, and make it into an actual part. So that's sort of how I do everything on SolidWorks. If we had a plasma cutter, it'd be way easier because I could just send it to that thing and get it cut out. But this is kind of an intermediate step if you don't have that like we do. So that's how I do everything, and we'll just pass it back off to Christian and he'll continue making these things.
The cool part about these radius arm mounts is the pivot point is dropped 2 inches lower than stock, which will match up perfect with the 2-inch drop beam mounts. You want everything to kind of stay similar. That way, if you're dropping the beams, you want to drop the radius arms, and the geometry all stays the same relative to what it is stock. One of the advantages to going to your own radius arm mounts and radius arms is you can go to a heim pivot instead of a stock bushing pivot that the truck comes with originally. And the advantage to running something like this is obviously the strength side is going to be a whole lot more than the bushing pivot, but you're also able to get a lot more droop out of the truck and just more articulation because these they can move a whole lot more than the stock bushing pivot can. Another advantage to these is you can also adjust the wheelbase of the truck with the heim. So if you wanted to push the beams a little bit further forward or push the front tires forward a little bit to be able to have the 35-inch tires clear the firewall at full bump or turning or whatever it may be, you can adjust these to get the tire to sit kind of where you want and set your own wheelbase, which helps a lot when going to bigger tires. This heim specifically that I'm going to be using is a 1.25" FK heim. It's a JMX 16T. It's made right here in the US of A. And all the hard parts that I get for any of our builds are straight from Tyler over at Cartech. We do have a Wingsworld promo code through them. So if you call or go on their website, use Wingsworld and it will save you a little bit of money off your order. Make sure you talk to Tyler though, because he is a super knowledgeable dude in everything related to what they sell. And he'll gladly get you dialed in with whatever you're looking for. But back to what we were working on. So these templates, they do need to get transferred over to some steel. And this is some 1/4" hot rolled steel that I'm going to be using for these radius arm mounts. Yes, I know this is not the most ideal stuff to be using for suspension components, but I am on a budget and I can't afford to do everything out of 4130, and this is going to work perfectly fine for what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead, get these templates transferred over to here, get them cut out, and then we're going to go ahead and get all the holes drilled, get the edges kind of prepped up so that everything looks nice, and then we'll kind of get back to you guys. What I'll probably do is throw you on a tripod and get some montage clips of me just getting all this stuff cut out. So let's roll to that. So now that we have all this stuff prepped and ready to go, we can go ahead and start getting this stuff tacked together. So you can see I went ahead and got all the places where I'm gonna actually be welding the plates together. This is gonna be the inside corner where this plate comes down and lands right on here for the top side where the frame actually sits. So I went ahead and ground all the mill scale off right there. And you can see on all these plates as well, I added the little tacks because everything on these radius arms the radius arm mounts are outside corner joints. So if you haven't seen the video on how to fit up plate work like that, go ahead and check out the video that we did previously. But let's go ahead and get these tacked together right now. Now that I got a couple tacks holding things together, you can kind of get an idea what this radius arm mount is actually going to look like. So this is the outside, what you're going to see from the outside of the truck looking down at the frame rail. and then this will be the inside. So that's right there is where the actual frame rail will be sitting, and you can see there is a bolt hole right there going into the bottom side of the frame rail, and then there's 4 going into the side. You could also see I did use a couple spacers, some shock shims to space out the gap inside where the heim is actually going to be sitting. And the reason for that is because if you did this to exactly what the heim is, which is 2 3/4, and you go and weld everything together, when you go to pull that heim back out after you've welded everything, it's going to be very hard to get the heim in and out after that. So if you add a couple spacers, it doesn't matter really what it is. I use shock shims, they're 20,000 shock shims. That helps a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and get the inside of this radius arm mount all burned in. That way I can go ahead and get the overlay plate that goes right here that bridges the 2 tabs together. I can get that on and then burned on the outsides. And just like that, we got these all welded together. Everything came out super nice. There's one spot on one of these, I can't remember where, right here, that I got a little bit of porosity on, which I'm not too happy with, but overall these things came out really nice looking. What I'll probably end up doing too, now that these are fully together and I'm looking at them, probably end up running a TIG bead along the inside right here where I didn't weld. And the reason I didn't put a weld there is because if I'd put a MIG weld there, it'd be protruding, sticking up, and this is right where the frame is going to be sitting. So I don't want that MIG bead running across there and coming in contact with the frame rail, because that might hinder this mount from actually sitting flat up against the frame, and I don't want that. So I'll probably end up just running a small little TIG bead across both of these. That way I just have the peace of mind knowing that all this is fully welded and there's no issues with any of that. But I did want to show you guys, I do have obviously everything out of here as far as my spacer and the shock shims, but this is what happens when you use shims or some type of spacer. Everything just slides together nice and easy. So if I did this with just using the heim and putting this in here and tacking everything together, this would not go in here as easy as this does. So if I want to powder coat these mounts, which I'm probably going to end up doing, the thickness of the powder coat on the plates won't affect anything. That heim will still slide up in here nice and easy, and it just makes assembly a lot easier down the road. I guess you could kind of say this is the first episode to this series on the diesel, on getting the front end lifted up and all squared away so we can get the 35-inch tires on it. That's kind of going to do it for these radius arm mounts. The next step is going to be making the actual radius arms themselves, which will be a next video coming up. But if you guys like this video and you learned something from it, please send a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.